Hey everyone, today on People Now, we're highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things to take care of the planet in People's Earth Day special.
And Julia LouisDreyfus opens up about appreciating life after her battle with cancer and how we can all help the environment.
And in reality TV binging, Teddi Mellencamp teases drama with Lisa Rinna and more that fans can expect in the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Season 10.
Plus,
how do I return to my studio? I don't really know.
Samantha Bee gives us her take on isolation and what she expects to come next.
Also today,
in the beginning, I probably was actually gay.
one of Joe Exotic's ex-husbands, John Finley, clears the air about his sexual orientation and whether or not Joe is actually the voice singing in those amazing music videos in Tiger King.
We need to know that and more on People Now. Let's go.
Hey everyone, welcome to People Now. Great to see you. Happy Wednesday. You may notice that we have a new face joining us. People Deputy Editor Wendy Noggle is here. Hey Wendy, how are you?
Hi guys, good, how are you?
Good.
I'm great. Thanks for joining us, Wendy. So right now, the entire world is working to end COVID-19, and we've seen a lot of stories of hope and humanity. But as Earth Day approaches on April 22nd, we can't forget about taking care of our planet too. It's very important. And leading up to Earth Day, we are featuring people who are making a difference, highlighting some of their stories in this week's People's Earth Day special. So Wendy, tell us a little bit about how this issue came together, what your team decided to highlight given everything that's going on in the world today.
So we've been thinking about this planet issue for a long time, and when the COVID-19 crisis hit, we really thought, should we still go ahead with this plan? When people are in quarantine, should we talk about conserving resources and protecting the planet? And we paused for a second, but then, when the stay-at-home requirements went into place, we saw amazing things happen. The sky started to clear in New York and Los Angeles and Seattle. In China, you could see that the air was clearing all the way from outer space. So we realized actually it's a good time to be talking about some of these issues because we're seeing that we can protect the planet, we can heal the planet, especially if we all mobilize together to take action.
It is interesting to see the change in all of our patterns and how that's affecting things right now. And later on in today's show, we're going to actually hear from some of the heroes that are featured in this week's issue. But tell us some of the stories maybe that stuck out to you.
One of my favorite stories, of course, is from Robert Redford. He wrote a beautiful essay for us that was really about his experience as a kid. He had just recovered from a mild case of polio, and his mom took him to Yosemite National Park to celebrate. And he realized in that moment of standing in nature that he just didn't want to see this part of the world that is so beautiful. He wanted to really be there and be a part of it. And that really kicked off a lifelong interest in activism and protecting the environment for him.
That's a great story. Now, Earth Day is this positive celebration, and we all need some positivity right now. So what's one way that we can embrace this holiday, even if we're staying at home?
I think there's a couple things you can do. Number one, you can take a picture of the thing that you love most and post it with the hashtag #ProtectThis and just share the story of why this matters to you. It's a very personal way to do it. Another thing is to just talk about it with your friends. It is really the most influential thing that you can do to talk about it because there is a lot of misinformation that travels on the internet and every place else. So that is a powerful message to your family and your innermost circle. But there's a lot of small things you can do. All the cooking you're doing right now, take all your scraps, put them in the backyard, start a composting area. The next thing you know, if you turn the soil over about once a week, you're gonna have gold, so then you can grow some vegetables and really start to take some small steps to do your part.
I like that because I think for some people, they're not sure how to make a difference, but you can start in really small ways. Wendy, what does Earth Day mean to you?
For me, it really is about connecting to some of those childhood memories. I did a lot of camping with my parents growing up. And so I think back to those times and I just think about how important it is to protect the planet so I can do that with my own kids.
Yeah, I love the camping. We do that a couple, 2 or 3 times a year. And it's been one of those things I love doing as a kid. I want my girls to do that and to appreciate it. What's your advice to people out there? You've done all these stories. You've heard from so many different heroes that are being very active in the movement, but where do people start if they don't know where to start?
Well, it does help to start small. It can be something as start using bar soap instead of a body wash because that tends to last longer.
That's a big ask, Wendy.
I know, but it doesn't come in a plastic bottle. And as you take steps like that, whether it's composting, reducing your food waste, we throw away a ton of food in this country. reducing what you put into landfills. There are services like ThreadUp that will help reuse and recycle clothing for you. So as you start to take one step, it really does snowball and will lead you to take other action. Another thing is just know what your carbon footprint is. And once you have a baseline, you can really target, okay, now how do I reduce it, and set a goal and stick to it.
Those are really good pieces of advice. And you're right, they are kind of simple. Wendy, it's always good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Good to
And
see
guys,
you.
throughout the rest of the show, we are going to be hearing from some real people, having some conversations with them about what they're doing to make a difference. So stick around for that as well.
Yes, starting now. Take a look. We are continuing our spotlight on People's Earth Day issue with Dr. Nataki Osborne-Jelks, a nationally recognized leader in engaging urban communities and youth of color in environmental issues. We are so happy she's joining us. Thank you so much for coming here. And first of all, let's start with this. What does Earth Day mean for you?
So thank you so much for inviting me, first of all. Hopefully this doesn't sound too anticlimactic, but I think about Earth Day and what it means to so many people. But for me, I really try to look at every day as Earth Day. Every day is an opportunity to try to do something to improve the status of our planet.
I think that's a perfect answer. I think we should see every day as Earth Day and really treat it with respect. Now, you grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, near industries that cause pollution. So how did that experience there impact what you do today?
So yes, I'm originally from Mississippi, but grew up for a portion of time in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that experience impacted me because after living in what some people call Cancer Alley in Louisiana, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it's not that we can say that what we may have been exposed to really led to that diagnosis, but really just the fact that that possibility existed for her and for so many other people, that really gave me the impetus to get involved with environmental justice issues. I began to connect the dots about, with respect to kind of the air quality index. The pollution index was always high. The air smelled bad around facilities. The water smelled and tasted bad. I had some health challenges myself that, again, it's all sort of anecdotal, but these were things that I was not experiencing before I moved to Louisiana. And after I moved away, they went away. So those connections began to sort of surface for me. People in this area have been impacted by those industries. And that is what sort of gave me the push in this direction.
Wow. And I mean, that's really vital information to know, especially if you live in those areas. So thank you for the work that you're doing with that. You've also worked on multiple projects with the youth of Atlanta. So why is that so important to you?
Well, the youth are the ones, quite honestly, who are not going to be able to pass the buck, who are going to have to contend with a lot of the challenges that that my and generations before mine have caused and continue to perpetuate. I think I see our youth as our best opportunity to make a change that will be sustainable.
Yeah, and you've also researched the impact of the environment on communities of color. So what can you tell us about your findings?
We find that communities of color and low-income communities are most inundated with environmental exposures. We see that happening in places like Atlanta, Georgia, as well as other places across the United States. And we could even, take that out to the world as well and look at things on a global scale. What we also find is that those same communities have a lot of potential to build capacity, to engage in research themselves, and to be change agents to really turn these toxic realities into clean, whole, and healthy communities. With respect to COVID-19, there's been a lot in the news lately about statistics that are starting to uncover, or at least, have people asking the question: are African Americans dying at a higher rate than other parts of our population? And part of the answer we know is kind of connected to some of the pre-existing conditions that people might have that then relate to things like the quality of our environment and what we may be exposed to on a daily basis when we think about things like air pollution and how that impacts respiratory health. So it's brought some challenges, but it's also unearthing a lot of new questions that now need to be investigated and substantiated with data.
And you have a lot of passion, a lot of drive. What is the number one thing that keeps you driven when it comes to researching and fighting for certain issues?
Well, I have a 10-year-old son, and a lot of this really hinges on him and his future, and the future of my nieces and my nephew. And so when I think about the prospects that they have for living whole, healthy lives moving forward, and I think about those future generations, I have to get involved. I have to stay involved.
Thank you so much for joining us and for all of this information.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm thrilled that People is doing a People Planet issue, even if I wasn't on the cover. The reason being that this conversation about the climate crisis is an urgent one. And I think we can motivate people in a positive way to make change, even if it's small change, but change within their own life that will have enormous impact on the world.
Julie LouisDreyfus is this week's People Earth Day special cover star. Her cover shoot took place on a sunny day in March at a farmer's market in San Diego. Now, though, she is hunkering down at home like many of us around the world amid the coronavirus.
And she's been looking for ways to help during the pandemic. She even filmed a funny makeup tutorial as part of a PSA urging Californians to stay at home. And she's making appearances in support of Feeding America and Direct Relief, which helps medical workers on the front lines.
Healthcare workers are close to Julia's heart. She's grateful for the doctors and nurses who saved her life after she was diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2017. Julia tells People that in addition to relying on her capable doctors and nurses during her battle with cancer, she relied heavily on her family and her close friends. She said that she was surrounded by people who were supporting her, going on to add, that was hugely meaningful and I needed it. It helped me to believe that I was going to get through it.
Now cancer-free, Julia says the ordeal has made her family's bond tighter, and that's that she now knows how precious life is. The whole experience has led to a permanent shift of her priorities.
I never thought I was immortal, but you don't spend a lot of time thinking about the end of your life. You just don't. I mean, that's not how we're wired. But once you've faced a near-death experience like that, you do begin to realize that at some point you're going to be out of here. We all are. And so how best to use your remaining time?
Julia joined the Natural Resources Defense Council in 2019 and has since focused on making the planet a better place to live for future generations.
It's within our grasp. We can do it. Anything is possible, and we have the technology. We do. We have the technology and we have a lot of the infrastructure to make change that will have impact. Of course, one hopes that government will step up to the plate, but I think that if you start locally in your own community, it'll have great effect.
In her own life, she says she does some pretty basic things to try and help. She recycles, she composts, and she's very aware of what she buys as a consumer.
She first got involved with environmental activism when her sons were young and says that as a mother, she's, quote, keenly aware of the burden that my children will have and their children will have if this challenge doesn't get met. She adds, I see it as my responsibility to try and right this ship. My life will be well spent doing it. For more on Julia LouisDreyfus and her activism, check out this week's People Earth Day special issue. And since we are gearing up to celebrate Earth Day with this week's special issue, we figured our story to make you smile for the day should celebrate Mother Nature too, specifically the stunning double rainbow that brightened the skies of New York this week. It was really incredible.
Yeah, it really was. After hours of heavy rainfall and darkness on Monday, the skies opened up just in time for the city's daily cheer to show appreciation for hospital and healthcare workers. Little backstory on that, the cheer started here in New York City on March 27th. It's gone on to happen every day at 7 p.m. As I've said many times on here, we do it every single day, almost, and you can just hear the whole city just erupt with applause and cheering. It's a really big moment every day.
Did you see the rainbow?
I did not. I saw it all over social media. I was mad that I missed it. Like, what was I doing?
I don't know.
Nothing.
Well, you were really busy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And when the double rainbow appeared in the midst of the cheering, it seemed as though Mother Nature was doing her part to show her gratitude too, not to mention giving us all a little sign of hope. And seeing all the photos and videos taken by New Yorkers was really uplifting. I could see them all the way here from Wisconsin. The sense that we're all in this together. April showers are definitely bringing us more than just flowers this year.
All right, stay with us. Full Frontal host Samantha Bee weighs in on coronavirus and how she thinks President Trump is handling the crisis. Plus, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills are back. We've got a behind-the-scenes peek at all the drama with Teddi Mellencamp. Guys, Tyndall Air Force Base was nearly decimated after Hurricane Michael back in 2018. Then, of course, base leaders had to decide how to rebuild and what that would all look like. And here to break it all down for us is Colonel Jefferson Hawkins. Jefferson, thank you so much for being here, sir. It's good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's talk about this from an insider's perspective. How bad was it exactly when that damage was all assessed after the hurricane?
Yeah, walking out is in the eye of the storm and seeing what the damage like, it literally looked like the bombing pictures you've seen from World War II, where carpet bombs, trees were down all over the place, the flagpole was laying in one direction. So we knew going back into the building for another 5 to 6 hours to ride out the back half of the storm that it was pretty catastrophic at that point. It ended up damaging all 484 of our buildings. The level of damage, though, was newer buildings sustained a little less damage, and we're able to get those back up pretty quick.
The footage is just incredible and kind of heartbreaking to look at it and overwhelming to imagine having to rebuild all that. What did those discussions look like? Was there ever a question of whether or not the base would even be rebuilt at all?
Yeah, at Tyndall itself, we never thought that. Our mission was number one, people. So all military aside is going to put mission, resources, and people as their top 3 priorities. How we end up vying which one takes the number one position is dependent on the scenario. So our number one job for that first week was to make sure that we could assess all of our people and make sure that they were safe and out of harm's way. Fortunately, we were able to evacuate 11,000 military personnel and their families with nobody getting harmed, which was great. Following that, then we stepped into what resources we had available for us, and we spent about the next full 7 days pulling resources aside, trying to recover the base in just the necessity we needed from a human nature standpoint. By the time all that had been reassessed, the Air Force and the Department of Defense, as well as the city and the state of Florida, had done a phenomenal job coming to help us out, as well as the rest of the community. So it was very amazing to watch the resiliency of our airmen. Following that was the Air Force's and Department of Defense's decision on whether or not Tyndall stayed active.
What was the strategy in terms of how the base would be rebuilt in an environmentally friendly way, and then maybe even in some ways become a model for more bases around the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that we drove, and it was actually driven to us from Congress, was, hey, if we do end up rebuilding this base, and please don't make it look like it did before. Don't come back 30 years later and have another hurricane that you need to rebuild the base again. So that was kind of our number one marching stance after taking care of our people, was how do we rebuild this installation to make it resilient, not only from our enemies, but also, more importantly, from Mother Nature, and protect our people if another storm comes through that area. So we went back and reassessed every single building. We actually did that 3 times throughout this process, and then decided which buildings we needed to demolish over a period of time of 3 to 4 years, and what we needed to rebuild. From an environmental standpoint, we talked about making them more resilient to Mother Nature. So we had a team work with not only the Air Force Civil Engineering Center, but also worked all the way traveling from the Pacific as well as down to Miami area to see what their hurricane standards were, and trying to adopt some of those for what's good for the Panhandle.
And Colonel, why was the environmental aspect so important for your team as far as the strategy there moving forward?
Yeah, I think everybody is fully aware. I've been in the Panhandle for a long time, over a period of a career of about 22 years, and seen a lot of hurricanes come through. We're not going to beat Mother Nature. So the biggest thing is, how do we protect ourselves to the best of our ability and protect our airmen and our families from Mother Nature. So that was the number one stance. The other big piece from an environmental perspective is, anything that we are rebuilding, we are coming in and doing full up environmental assessments to make sure that we do it right, and we protect what environment we're disturbing underneath us as well.
Colonel, we love getting your perspective. We really appreciate you taking some time for us today.
Hey, appreciate you paying attention to us. We really honor that and respect. Thank you.
Season 10 of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills premieres tonight. One of our producers, Sam Belikov, caught up with one of the housewives, Teddi Mellencamp, to get all the details on the new season and some updates on her life right now. Take a look.
So before we get into Housewives, though, I know you have a newborn and are homeschooling your other 2 kids. How are you handling everything during this isolation?
You know, I would say some days are really good and I'm like, yeah, I'm crushing this. Everything's going so smoothly. And some days are a complete show, like next level, like we're running around. Like they decided, the kids were on spring break last week, and then we get an email like, oh, school starts back tomorrow, we're changing things up. I'm like, don't change things up. I just learned how to do the last thing. So, I mean, it's definitely, there's a learning curve.
Let me ask you about this. So you're an accountability coach, your company All In. How is it faring in this time? Have people been coming to you more since they're stuck inside and like have all this extra snacking time and without access to gym?
Actually, we've been full every week. We're filling up. I've also been offering some discounts because I know that people are in, financial need. And really the biggest thing is that people are wanting support right now. And you're wanting to feel that level of community. So when you have, everything that we do is done on text message. So you have a team of coaches that are backing you up and, giving you that support and community that you need. It's really, been helpful.
You know what's something that I think has never come up on Housewives? Have any of the other ladies ever asked you to be their coach?
No! No, thank God. But a bunch of their friends have done my program. So I know they refer it out because even one of Kyle's best friends is one of my coaches because she was a client and then became a coach.
Why do you say thank God no?
Because I think that, in our group, things can, people could take things out of context. And I think it's good that we keep it business aside.
You never know what to expect when I'm expecting.
Is that just a cheeky tagline, or do you act out of character this season?
I mean, it's kind of cheeky, kind of true.
Well, what can we expect from you? What can you tease?
I can tease that. I mean, Lisa Rinna said, I think Teddi spills more than anybody, else this season. And I think the problem is I'm just really aware this season because I am not drinking. I am very present. I am listening. And when that happens, you don't forget things and you notice certain behaviors, and especially if they keep happening.
You were in People magazine recently, and when talking about the season, you said that you're a little anxious to relive some of it. Can you tease what has you most anxious?
I think the biggest tease that I can give is if something's happening or if something feels not authentic to me, I'm going to call it out.
Okay.
And I'm going to say it in the moment. And yes, you may change my opinion, and maybe I can be Miss Judgy Wudgy was a pregnant person.
I've never been with a girl. I've only been with a couple.
Judgy Wuzzy was a pregnant woman.
But I'm going to say how I honestly feel, even if in the end it's going to come back to haunt me, because I don't want to be somebody that's not being myself because I'm more worried about what the viewers think than what's the truth.
From the trailer and a lot of press surrounding this season of what you ladies have said, it seems like the newest housewife, Garcelle, really gets along with everybody. Why do you think she makes a good housewife?
She's got a big personality. She's funny. She doesn't take herself too seriously. And so I think whenever you have somebody that's, able to have open conversations and call things out, they're a good housewife.
Did she surprise you at all this season?
There was a couple things that surprised me after the fact, but I think I'll end up finding out a lot more as the season goes on. Because remember, you only see one side of things. You don't see if there was somebody else, and you don't see confessionals. And a lot of the time, people can get pretty shady in their confessions.
Yeah. In the trailer, we see the other newbie, Sutton Stracke, call you a little boring to your face. So shady, not just in the confessionals, to your face.
Teddi, you were a little boring. Are we supposed to be honest or not?
What was your reaction to that? And do you and her just not get along?
I was like, wow, so you spent some time on Twitter. How's it going? You did your research? You wanted to poke at me for something you read? Good one. But of course, I'm a hormonal crazy person. So the boring thing, it's whatever, be original. But there was something else that she said that kind of hit me, and, I was super emotional about it. And that won't be fun to relive.
You and Lisa Rinna seem to get into it in the trailer.
What else should I do, Teddi?
Oh, those are fighting words.
What can you tease there?
I think Lisa and I both say what we think in the moment. And so that's exactly what happens. And I think you see my face, I'm almost like, what? Did I just get snapped at? But there's more to come on that.
Denise, there is a side of you that is hidden.
Oh. She's not who she pretends to be.
I don't deserve this. That is a huge thing to say.
What could be that bad?
So they
If you don't want to be here, then go.
The rumors of an affair between Brandi Glanville and Denise Richards, how much of a shock did those rumors come to you?
I mean, here's the thing, and I mean, I hate to be a little bit crude, but like there was way more going on, and there's way more that you guys are gonna find out about than like allegedly what happened with Brandi and Denise. That is just like the icing on the cake. But there, I mean, come on.
Are you saying there's way more going on with Denise?
There's way more. I think that whenever something plays out on the press and whenever two sides are both putting things in the press before the show actually comes out, it's because they want the audience to feel a certain way going into watching the show. And I think that's like one, really lame. Like, let it play out in real time and let people watch the show. But also, like, who are you trying to fool?
Yeah. So you're saying they actively put things in the press?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you put things on your social media, or you go, you know, all of a sudden you're at a red carpet.
Yeah.
Come on.
How involved did you get in the whole thing?
I'm pretty involved, but because there is more to the story. Whether, you know, what their extracurricular activities are together wasn't really my concern. It was something else that really was.
You were an on Twitter.
I was going to dishing out what I got.
So Camille Grammer initially said she wasn't going to rejoin the group this season. There was a lot of drama last season, but then she did end up filming. Did that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. That woman, like, if Twitter isn't paying her to do all of this work on there, then I'm frightened for how much time she spends on there. It is such a crazy town. But yeah, I was not shocked.
Was she around a lot filming?
Not around me a lot, but that's not surprising. I don't think she's my biggest fan.
Who would you say surprised you the most this season?
You know, I'd say this season there was like some good surprises and some not so good surprises. Like for me, a good surprise would be like, I got to see like a completely different side to Erica. Not a different side, but I got to really know her. And I think vice versa, and really open up to one another, which like, if you would have looked back to like 2 years ago, you would not have thought that was going to happen. Or even last year when I was drunk in Provence. Like, so I think there's all different kinds of surprises, and just gonna have to tune in because it's a lot.
For more of Teddi, watch her in The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills tonight and every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Bravo.
You kids don't think you're the only ones after the royal merchant now, do you?
Pretty fugitive, John B?
Fugitive adjacent? I'm on a treasure hunt.
You're serious.
If you took the Goonies and the Stranger Things kids and mushed them together and then turned them into 16 and 17-year-olds and then added David Attenborough and Planet Earth narrating with the scenery mixed with Marty Byrde and Ozark and just had like this weird dysfunctional family, and that would be the Outer Banks. So that's kind of my way of describing it, I guess.
That is a great way to describe it, actually. Outer Banks is a mystery, a treasure hunt, a steamy summer soap opera all rolled into one, and we're calling it now. It's going to be your next guilty pleasure.
People staff writer Kara Warner caught up with the series' hunky star Chase Stokes to hear how the young cast bonded both on and off screen. Watch.
Rudy, who plays JJ in the show, him and I actually got an apartment together. So we really wanted to make that friendship dynamic incredibly real. So we got a place, and then every weekend, for the most part, like everybody came over to our place. So we would have these little get-togethers, and everybody would come over. We'd play video games, we'd play board games, we'd sing, we'd dance, it was just a riot. And it really felt like an adult version of like a YMCA camp, where like you're having these slumber parties and hanging out with people, and you just kind of like, even now we still hang out back in LA. I mean, we're all staying together, quarantining together, and we made a huge fort in the living room. So there's like this true honesty to the friendship that you see on screen that is equally present off screen as well.
I love it. And if you want more, all 10 episodes of Outer Banks are streaming now on Netflix, so check it out. Now we move on to this.
Hey, I'm Brian Roof. I'm the executive food editor for America's Test Kitchen and Cook's Country Magazine. And I'm here today with my kids, Tanner, Layla, And Nolan, say hi. Hi. Today we're going to be cooking. We're all cooking from home a lot more often these days, and it's a great opportunity to get your kids involved in that whole process. After all, there's math, science, and delicious food involved, which they all love. So today we're going to be making chicken tinga, which is one of their favorite recipes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and you can find this recipe and a whole bunch more and lots of kids activities at atkkids.com, so be sure to check it out. Okay, Tanner, do you want to take us through the ingredients that we're going to use to make chicken tinga? You want to start off with the spices?
Sure. So we have salt, smoked paprika, cumin, chipotle, and cinnamon.
Okay. What's this?
Onions.
What about this?
Lime juice, tomato sauce.
What about this?
Lime zest, olive oil, and garlic.
Okay. And what about this big thing in the back here? Chicken.
Chicken, that's what I said.
We're making chicken tinga. All right, we're gonna get cooking. All right, now, it's your big moment. Want to tell us what's going on here?
So we have 2 tablespoons of oil and over medium heat, and we have 1 onion chopped, and we're gonna add that to the oil, the hot oil.
Scrape it all out. All right.
All right. And we're just gonna let that sit for 5 minutes until the onions start to get soft.
Okay, Layla, it's been about 5 minutes. Our onions are nice and softened. What's next?
So we're gonna add the spices.
Do you remember what we have there?
Cumin, salt, and all the other spices that I can't remember. We're gonna add them.
All right.
And garlic.
And how many cloves of garlic that is? The recipe calls for 3. I added 4 because I like garlic. All right, you want to stir that up?
Yep.
All right. And how long are we going to cook this for?
30 seconds until it starts to smell nice.
All right.
So it's been 30 seconds and I can start to smell the spices, so we're gonna add the chicken, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so we're supposed to add the chicken and the tomato sauce at this point, but rather than add the tomato sauce first, I like to add the chicken so it cools down the pot a little so the tomato sauce doesn't splatter up. So do you want to grab those tongs?
Yeah.
And you want to just kind of put that chicken in there?
Yep.
I guess I could probably slide it all in too. Now let that come to a simmer. Let's give it another stir just to make sure everything's coated with tomato sauce and the spices. It's good. Oops. And then once we start to see that simmer around the edges here, we're going to throw a lid on top and we'll let that cook for about 25 minutes on medium low heat.
So it's been about 25 minutes, and we're gonna take the chicken off the heat. And we're gonna take the chicken, and we're gonna take the chicken out and let it rest for about 5 minutes.
All right, so we've lost Tanner. He's on an important Zoom call right now with his teacher and the rest of his class. But Nolan and Layla are going to shred the chicken up with a couple of forks. Nice.
Okay, so now I'm gonna put this chicken back in the pot and we're gonna put it back on the stove over medium heat and let it simmer until it gets nice and thick, which is about 10 minutes.
It's been cooking for about 10 minutes and the sauce is tightened up nicely. Tanner has come back conveniently when we're ready to eat. So we're gonna turn off the heat. Layla, you wanna give that a stir? Tanner, we have, what are those 2 ingredients right there?
Lime juice and lime zest.
You wanna add those to the pot?
Sure.
Okay. And lime juice. All right. I'm gonna come show that to the camera, how good it looks. Stir it all in. Very delicate stirs. And then I think we're ready to make some tacos. You guys want to have some tacos?
Yeah. Okay, so our tacos are ready, right? And we're gonna start eating them.
I don't even know why I'm here. Okay, who wants flour? Who wants corn?
I want flour.
What do you guys think?
So good. So good.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's it from us today. Thanks for joining us. If you're interested in this recipe, you can find it at atkkids.com. And if your kids are brand new to cooking, you should check out my first cookbook, which is perfect for the ages of 5 to 8. So that's all from us. Stay home and stay well fed.
Like many of us, Full Frontal host Samantha Bee is isolating at home with her family. She's even doing her Emmy-nominated show from home, in the woods to be more specific. She opened up to me about the coronavirus outbreak, how she thinks the president is handling it, and she got a little silly too, sharing some Full Frontal mishaps. Take a look. You've been doing the show in the woods,
yes,
which is pretty cool. I grew up on a farm, so I'm back in Wisconsin on the farm. So I've had a lot of mishaps with all of a sudden dogs scratching on the door to try to get in or barking. Any mishaps for you?
Well, we've had to hold shooting lots of times because it's completely, like, everything that we're doing is completely weather dependent. So if it's raining, we can't shoot. If it's too windy, it's very difficult to shoot. So we're kind of trying to shoot on sunny days where you can get the best light bounce. And the birds are overhead fighting, and sometimes they get, yesterday we were filming the show that will air this Wednesday, and there were two birds kind of like fighting over something, like a big raven and a hawk fighting, and then we had to hold for that. We had to hold for our neighbor who was chainsawing stuff last week. Like, you know, it's a different type of experience. Airplanes go by.
Yeah, I saw you chopping some wood. Have your wood chopping skills gotten better over time?
No, not at all. Wood chopping is not my strong suit. I would never want to depend on me for warmth.
Well, it's very fun, and I like that you've been able to find some just unique ways to connect to the audience during this time. Did you ever think that you'd be filming your show on an iPhone in the woods?
Not in a million years. This would never have occurred to me. And it just happened so, you know, it just, as the world was kind of shutting down around us and we came up here with just a little bit of equipment, we frankly didn't know that we could do it. And so learning that we could and learning that we can actually have fun doing it, or, you know, with a terrible backdrop, at least we can do this together. This is like our skill set.
How do you feel Donald Trump is doing with handling the health crisis?
Oh, I think he's doing a terrible job. I mean, he's doing a terrible job. This is all really too little, too late. I don't think there's a coherent strategy. That's not what I'm feeling. I think there's no coherent federal strategy. And when that doesn't exist, and the states are off just kind of making their own plans in the absence of a coherent federal strategy, then you really put the whole country at risk of flare-ups happening in different places. Like, everybody's not doing the exact same thing. Then when we kind of try to go back to normal life, it won't work. It will fall apart because each state has a different set of standards. And so there'll be a flare-up over here, and then they'll tamp that down, and then it'll rise up again here, or someone will travel from here to here and bring it with them. So it actually does us a great disservice. It's a real shame. I mean, it's a tragedy.
Yeah, it really is a tragedy. I mean, how do you think that presidential candidate Joe Biden would handle this if in a leadership position?
Well, I do think that he would allow the experts to speak fully. I do think that he would not contradict the expertise of people who've been doing this for decades and who have lived through many other crises. I think that he would not subvert known factual information with his own theories about drugs that may or may not work, that he's invested in, and he wouldn't be invested in them. There's a million ways that literally almost anyone else would demonstrate better leadership in this moment. Like, literally, if our president just stopped talking, that would help tremendously.
When this crisis is over and the isolation period is lifted, which we don't even know when that's going to be, it's very uncertain. How do you think that the world will change, and how do you think the entertainment industry will be changed?
I don't know. I mean, I hesitate to give any predictions. I do think it'll be a very slow and difficult process getting back to some semblance of normal life, because even on a movie set, you're so intimately connected with hundreds of people. I mean, it takes a lot of people to make a film, even a small film, and people are in close contact and touching your face and adjusting things, and there are people everywhere. So how do we return to that existence? I don't really know. How do I return to my studio? I don't really know. It takes a lot of people in close quarters to turn on the lights in a studio and film a show.
I know.
I'm just not sure what that's going to look like. There's probably, I can only really speak for us. We're finding a different way to work. We're learning that we can do a lot of work in separate quarters. And so that will probably continue for quite some time, because we don't want to contribute to infection, and we want to keep our employees safe, and we want to keep the world at large safe. So it kind of behooves all of us to experience this different way of working and just accept that for the near future.
You're making it work remotely. So can you tease for us what's coming up on this week's Full Frontal?
This week's Full Frontal, we have, it's a great show. We have Elizabeth Warren is going to be on the show.
Wow.
And also Michael Lewis, who I love. He's amazing. We have super funny content, and my husband does my hair roots. So
I have to be honest, I'm very excited to see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah. You'll see.
All right, we've been bringing you exclusive interviews with the cast of characters from Netflix's hit docuseries Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. Today we hear from John Finley, one of Joe Exotic's ex-husbands, and I got the update on the wedding bells in his future and how he feels about Joe Exotic today. Take a look. All right, guys, if you've been under a rock somewhere and haven't seen or heard of Tiger King, you need to watch it. One of the breakout stars, John Finley. So good to talk to you, John. Thank you for taking a few minutes today.
Thanks for having me on.
Let me just tell you something. My wife and I watched this together. We loved it. My wife is your biggest fan, and I'm just keeping her out of the room here. Especially, you got the new teeth, my friend. Looking good. Tell me about that. I know that's been something you've talked about, that you got some work done there.
Yeah, June of last year is when I got them fixed, and it was because we started wedding plans, and I was kind of self-conscious about my teeth then, and I'm like, let's do it. Let's get them fixed.
Okay, and so you did it, and now, yeah, you mentioned that you're making the wedding plans. You're engaged. What's the update for people who haven't followed along? How long have you been engaged?
We've been engaged since October of last year.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
What did you and her make of the series and the way you were depicted there?
I mean, we weren't really aware of what was going to be shown on it, so everything that was shown was kind of surprised. And I mean, they made me look like a methed out hillbilly, and they knew that my teeth were fixed. The tattoo was finished before they even aired it, like 6 months before they even aired it, and they didn't even go into follow-up stories of like me or Saf.
How would you describe your life now, if you had to sum it up for us?
I live a lot more positive life. I don't regret my past, but it does kind of make me the man I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And I just pretty much go with the flow now.
If you look back on it and your experience with Joe Exotic, were you ever really in love with Joe Exotic?
Let's just say at one point I was.
What was it about him that connected you in that way?
The same thing that brought all of us there. It was the animals.
And then when was the tipping point that changed that for you?
That one's a loaded question.
Yeah? In what way? What do you mean? There's just a lot about it?
Yeah. I mean, what everybody saw in the documentary, that was actually him. There was no editing of him or anything. He was the way he was, and he didn't care who he hurt.
Do you still feel and hold the feelings of being hurt by Joe?
No. I got rid of those a long time ago.
How were you able to move beyond that?
Well, having a fantastic fiance that my agent calls a legend, she helps out a lot.
You mentioned that tattoo. We saw that as part of the series that ended up getting covered up. We did see the new one. What do you want to tell us about that experience and why that was so meaningful to you?
I mean, it's been a burden on me for a long time, and it's now just not even really a memory. I mean, it's gone. There's nothing showing of it. And the other ones I have will be soon covered up too.
The one thing that I thought was interesting, as my wife and I watched the series, it was interesting how, near the end anyway, there were questions raised about your relationships with men and women. Have you ever publicly defined your sexual orientation? Is that something that's ever been talked about publicly for you?
I've actually talked about it quite a bit, but I'm straight.
And so when you think back about that phase with Joe Exotic, how do you, I guess, in terms of when you, inside yourself, how do you think about that and consider that relationship?
I mean, in the beginning, I probably was actually gay, but towards the end, it just wasn't right for me.
Yeah. So it's something you kind of lived through and then have moved on to different pastures, I guess.
More fluid pastures, I guess.
Okay. Looking over to the fiance. That's my favorite. We need to get her in here. It's really what needs to happen. We need to get her side of things.
She won't do it.
She won't do it? She won't just come in and say hello real quick?
I'll say hi.
Can we see you?
No.
As you look to the future, what are your plans for the future at this point?
Me and my agent are talking about them, and in the near future, hopefully, wedding bells.
Yeah, what is the forecast for that? Are we looking like a year away? I know she's right there, so you better get this right.
You know, we're still in the process of talking about it. I mean, we have pretty much everything planned out, but it's just depending on the coronavirus of when we're going to have it.
It's really fun. What has changed the most about your life since Tiger King hit Netflix?
I used to be just a normal, ordinary working American, and now I'm known worldwide.
Here's the only other burning question. We asked Jeff Lowe about this as well. We're talking about how great Joe Exotic's voice sounds on those music videos. Jeff said that's not really Joe singing. True or false?
I know from experience that is not him singing.
But I'm sure you've heard Joe sing as well. What's his singing voice compared?
Oh, you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear him sing at all.
Okay. Well, we'll clear up the burning questions that we had. All right, final one. If this is made into a movie, who's playing you?
Top pick is Channing Tatum. Second pick is Shia LaBeouf. Third pick is Tom Hardy and Charlie Hunnam.
Wow. I mean, did your fiance come up with this list?
No.
She's like, here's who I want. So good. John, I really appreciate you taking some time for us, and honestly wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And bye-bye to your fiance as well.
Bye.
All right, guys, it is time for our third and final spotlight as part of People's Earth Day special. I caught up with 14-year-old environmental activist Alexandria Villasenor, who told me why it's important to be a stubborn teenager, as she puts it. She shared some details about her friendship with Greta Thunberg as well. Watch. What's your message about climate change, how it could impact the future, basic steps people can take?
My main message is that I will continue taking climate action until I see world leaders take steps to reduce our global greenhouse gas emissions. So listen to the scientists and follow the IPCC report, all of the ones that say how we need to start taking urgent actions. I think that young people now have to be the ones out there protesting, because when we do, we're so powerful when we come together. And as young people, we're optimistic, but when we take actions, we also think outside of the box. And so there are so many different ways to take action. Young people can go strike on Fridays. They can do other sorts of demonstrations. They can go lobby their politicians for accurate climate education policies or other policies enacted. They can talk to their classmates and their friends about climate. there are so many different ways for young people to be making their voice heard.
When it comes to the environment, I've heard you say that you're an advocate for being a stubborn teenager. Talk to me some about that and what exactly you mean.
Yes, so one thing as a young person that we definitely have to us is we're known for being stubborn, for maybe not doing something that we're told to do. We're really sticking with ourselves and what we believe. And as young people, we really have to cultivate that and use that for climate activism or any other thing we're passionate about. So when I'm out there protesting, being out there every Friday since December 14th, I have really been stubborn with that. I've been stubborn on making sure that I'm consistent with my actions.
Okay, that makes sense. People compare you and have drawn parallels between you and Greta Thunberg. And you mentioned earlier that you had met her. Talk to me about that. Are you friends with her? Is that someone you've connected with, or what kind of encounters have you had?
Greta Thunberg did inspire my activism in the first place, and she has inspired so many other people all around the world. I think that what's great about Greta is that when she started striking on Fridays, what she did is she showed that it was possible for other young people to do it as well. So young people saw someone like them and it made them feel so much better about taking that action. I have also been able to, I filed a complaint alongside Greta Thunberg where myself, Greta, and 14 other children around the world filed a complaint to the Committee on the Rights of the Child at the United Nations, stating that 5 countries were violating our rights by their inaction on the climate crisis. And so it's great to see how Greta and all of these other young people are finding new ways of that type of action, so legal actions. And I'm so happy that Greta has been able to inspire so many people.
Earth Day's coming up. What's your main message for people on Earth Day?
So Earth Day is very exciting. It's actually the anniversary of the launch of my organization, Earth Uprising. So all around, that's a very important day to me. But Earth Day this year, since we'll be inside, what I am really looking forward to is the Earth Day Live that will be happening, because that's a way for people all around the world to be sharing their climate stories and also get out the call for action. I'm also very excited because the week of Earth Day will actually be the largest digital climate strike that young people will have ever done.
Wow.
And so, yeah, exactly. This whole Earth Day week, it's going to be very important for the action that we take, even if we're inside.
All right, coming up tomorrow, we're going to chat with Dove Cameron about our newest single called Remember Me.
Plus, Brooke Burke is encouraging us to get creative with our workouts, and she's got a great one that we can all do at home. All you need is a chair. It's easy.
It's really easy. I did it. It's a lot of fun. All right, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.